directions. It is truly amazing how every content can utilize Google My Maps and what you can do with it. It is super awesome. So if you have not already, please, please, please make sure that you sign in. We are looking at making sure that you guys are getting credit for attending these live webinar sessions. So sign in with this bit.ly here. Remember, bit.lys are case sensitive, so put the GISD in all caps. Gina and I are doing this presentation. Where'd my little box go down there? Oh, there it is. Okay. So if you don't know, I am the one-to-one coach at South Garland. My name is LaShaka Wesley Hosier, and my main girl, Gina, is rocking the chat as usual. Gina, you want to say hey?
Hey guys, thanks for coming out today. I know, man, we've only got a few more weeks, so hang in there with us. I hope that, like I said in the chat, I love my maps. I think that I hope that you get some really cool stuff out of this today because I think it's really fun and exciting. So we can get started.
Okay. So if you've been to one of our webinars before, you know that Gina and I do have a webinar back channel. So you can ask questions in the chat, which she'll feed to me at the end of the webinar, and I'll be able to answer. But if you don't feel comfortable asking them in the chat, or if you just remember something later and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have asked this, you can definitely go back to the back channel by putting in this bit.ly. You can fill in the sheet, and then Gina and I do check that often. One of us will answer your question, and then your answer will be emailed to you in PDF form. So, like I said, today we are covering MyMaps. There is a lot you can do with this. So in beginner skills, we're going to look at how you can add place markers with videos and images. And then intermediate, how to add multiple layers to a map, changing the base map, how to export your map. And then advanced, we're going to look at data tables, using a sheet to make a map, and then some of the ways that you can implement this in your classroom. So this is so funny. I love memes. Okay. Boom. So there's a couple different ways that you can get to your maps in Google. Okay. You can go to your drive and just click on new, and then it'll open the things that you use most. So you'll see like docs, sheets. No, what are you doing to me? Stop. There we go. Docs, sheets, slides, because those are the things I use most often. But then if you click on this more arrow, you can find Google My Maps here. So you can get there doing that. You can get there by typing in mymaps.google.com, and that'll take you to this page. So as you can see, I've created 3 maps. And then if you go to the one from your drive, it'll actually take you to a map. So I would suggest typing in mymaps.google.com, and then you can see all of the maps that you own. I did have my AP Human Geo kids do a culture map last year that they shared with me in Google Classroom. So this is why I need more maps this way. Scavenger hunt map, DC map. So there's all kinds of things. But if you're just looking at maps, the ones that I own, this is where it is. So this new one that I just created, this untitled map, actually just popped up there. Okay. So we're going to open a map, and I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but just because I'm extra and so is Gina, I want to show you guys the invitation that I made for this is actually the map I'm going to share with you guys today. So all the place markers, there's one for Harris Hill, there's one for South Garland over here, there's one for Garland High. It's all the places that Gina and I go together, which is why I put all of our little Bitmojis there. But that's just like because we're extra. Okay, so let me get back to the map. All right, so if I click on this GISD My Maps webinar map, so to make that image the background for my invitation, all I did was pick the points on the map, and then I screenshotted the whole map and then kind of cropped it down to what I wanted to include, and then overlaid the Bitmojis for Gina and I on there. So that's more of like a design thing in Spark or Canva, but you could do the same thing if you wanted to include it as a background. So when you open a map, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so you can add points 3 different ways. You can do a search. So I'm going to search for, I already added North Garland. So I'm going to search for Lakeview. And so as I start typing it in, you can see Lakeview Centennial pops up, and it's going to take me right to it. So I can just click add to map. And now Lakeview Centennial is the point on my map. So it's added it on my map, and it's also added it over here to my data. You can just click on, I'm actually going to back up a little bit. So now I'm in Garland, right? I'm going to back out a little further so I can see all the areas. Okay, so let's say I want to add the Arboretum, and I'm like, oh man, I know where that is. I don't need to type it in. I can see it. You can just click on it and add to map that way, or you can drop a pin anywhere over here, okay, by just clicking add marker, and then boom, now I've added one for Centennial Boulevard. Or if you know the latitude and longitude of something, you can copy those numbers and put them in. So I'm going to do latitude and longitude of, what am I missing? Let's do Rowlett High School. Rowlett High School. Okay, so here it's going to give me the latitude and longitude of the school. I'm just going to copy it from Google, put it in my map, and then do a search for that point. And it took me right to the high school. Okay, so then I would just add that to my map. Now, as you can see, I've got every school listed. I'm going to get rid of 0.8 actually, because I don't need one on random Centennial Boulevard there. Where did you go? Oh, there. So to get rid of a marker, if you do it by accident, you're just going to click this little trash can. So boom, that's done. Okay, but if I go back over here, all of the other schools I've listed as, you know, whatever, high school or the Colwell Center. But when I get to Rowlett, I just have these random numbers and nobody knows what that means. So to edit your place marker, you're going to click on this little pencil, and then I can move this down into the description, and then I can type in Rowlett High School. And once I update it over here, it's going to update on my thing as well. Oh, but now my other ones are all untitled. Oh, because I moved them. Okay, I see what I did. Okay, I'm going to click the pencil again. I'm going to move that there, and then I'm just going to change the name to Rowlett. I don't want it to mess up the rest of my stuff. Rowlett High School. Okay. Now all my things are there, and you can see all the schools have names. Okay, another thing I can do is I can change the style of this marker. So I can change the color. So, you know, I can change it to more of a maroon color if I wanted, or purple or green. I'm just going to make it green. Okay, I can also change the icon. So if I like any of these, I can change those, but I can also click on more icons. And you guys, there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of icons. So let's say I wanted a boat, and I would recommend using the search feature or filter if you can. So I'm going to make Rowlett High School a boat. Okay, you can also do a custom icon. So let's say I have a picture of Rowlett that I want to use, or I want to take a picture of myself. So I'm just going to do the webcam, and then that was me earlier. Okay, so now I can just take a snapshot and then hit select. And now this little custom icon is going to pop up down here at the bottom. There's my face. So I can put that as the custom icon for Rowlett if I wanted to, but I'm actually going to do a Google image search for Rowlett High School. I guess it would help if I could spell. You can tell I don't teach there because I never know how to spell things. Rowlett High School. Okay, so now here, if I want to do this kind of Rowlett Eagle, now it's going to change my custom icon. Did it change my custom icon? Yes. Select. Okay, I'm going to hit OK and see what pops up. Oh, it's still my face. Okay, well, you see how you can add something else. So not only is it over here on the map, but it's also on my map legend. There's my little face. So if the digital learning team wanted to make a map of where all the one-to-ones were, they could put my face at South Garland and Gina's face at Garland High, and you would get the point there. One of the other things that you can do is add an image or a video to that pin. So you can make this map interactive for your students. So let's say you're a social studies teacher and you've got a geography class and you're showing them all of the major points in an area. So I know that I want to find a video about this area. So I'm going to go to this YouTube search. I'm going to type in Rowlett High School, and then let's see what comes up. Okay, so there's the school's 20th anniversary video. Sure, why not? We'll put that in there. So now this YouTube video is embedded into my point. So if I hit save and I click on the Garland point, you can see it's just got the details there because I added it through the maps. But if I click back on my face over here, now this video pops up and I can watch the YouTube video right at this point.
And I'm Karen Sowers. I was the first librarian to be hired at Rowlett High School, and then Karen followed me. I'm the first decade, she's the second decade.
Okay, so if you're doing an interactive map with your students, that would be a good way for them to not have to leave that window that you're currently in because it embeds it there. I can also add just images. So I can add, you know, another photo of me if I wanted, or I could do a Google search image. So Rowlett. Okay, let's type in high school because God only knows what that is. Must be a Pokemon or something. Okay, so then I hit select and now, oh, an error occurred. That's why it didn't replace my face. Okay, so I'm gonna click on this plus sign. Let me see if it likes this one better. Do you like that one better? Maybe, no? Oh, okay, there we go. Now it likes that one better. So now the kids can see this video and then they can scroll through multiple pictures or whatever else you wanted to do for that. Another thing you can do is change the color of the icon. So when I made the map for the invitation, I made sure that Garland's pinpoint was yellow, okay, and the one for South is blue. But if I wanted to, I could go in and just change this to red, okay? And then if I click here, I can get directions straight to this place from wherever I wanted to do. So if I wanted to go from Garland High School to South Garland High School, now on my map, this is a separate layer, it's included driving directions from Gina's school to my school. Okay, so you can kind of see throughout the area what you want to do there. So that's editing place markers. Now, let's say that between Garland and South Garland, let me zoom in a little bit, I want to find restaurants that Gina and I could eat lunch at. Okay, so I'm going to add another layer. And I'm just going to put, as the title of my layer here, I'm going to put lunch spots. Okay, because if I'm going to see Gina or she's coming to see me, we kind of want to do it on the way, right? So here's a place. Let's add that one. There's a Domino's that we can add. We'll add that. So notice, even though I'm adding these, they're only going into the lunch spots map, okay? So I'm still on this driving route for me and Gina. And now that I've zoomed out, you can't really see places to eat. But if I come up and I zoom out even more so you can see my entire map, you can see the two places that I've added for the lunch spots here. So if I click on them, there's Domino's and there's the Pandaria, okay? But if I don't want to include the driving directions on this map, like let's say I'm going to send this map to the PDC and they don't need driving directions, all I would do is unclick and now it takes that off of my map, okay? So when you do a layer, it's kind of like an overlay. So you can stack overlays on top of each other and you can see, you know, here's all of the schools, here's the directions, here's the restaurants, here's all the parks, or I can take those things completely out and now here's just the schools. Or I can put nothing on my map and do just lunch spots. Whatever you want to do for your layers is completely up to you. And then just like any other Google Doc, you can share your map. So one of the other things I need to change is my base map. Okay, right now I have it set on like a city map and that's what it's always going to default to. Let's say I want to do the satellite map. Now it's changed, okay? And here's my new background. So if I wanted to send this to people, but I want it to always open with my satellite background as my background, I would come up here to these three dots, and this menu allows you to either start a new map, copy this one, open one, move this one to the trash, or I can set it as my default view. Okay, so now it says your current view has been saved as default for this map. So that means every time I open this particular map, or I share it with anyone else and they open the map, it's always going to pull up with this background instead of the one that it normally defaults to, which is this one. Okay, I can also do black and white city map. I can change it to all of the water in the area. I can do this one. So whatever you want your people to see is what you would change your base map to. Because obviously this is making a big difference on how the map looks. So if you're changing it in one area, you might want to change it, you know, for your students. So I'm going to put it back on just the regular city map. One of the other fun things that you can do is draw a line. So let's say I don't necessarily need directions to and from Garland and South Garland, but I do want to know how far away it is. Okay, so I would just start a line here in Garland, and I would move my line here. Okay, so then I can keep clicking if I want to go here next, and then here next, and then here next. Boom. Okay, so now I've made a circle, and it's going to be my polygon, and I'm going to say trips to schools. I'm going to save that. Now I can see that between those schools, if I just do the outside, so the perimeter of my polygon, it is 17.3 miles. And between all of those schools that I marked in my polygon, there's an area of 7.36 square miles. And I can change my polygon so that it shows up really dark on my map. I can add, so my borders are really heavy. I can make this blue inside or blue, you know, dark blue on the outside, whatever I want to do. Same thing. I can add images. I can add a description. So if I want to put in here, start at GHS, head to SGHS. I do know how to spell, I promise. Okay. And then I hit save. Okay. So now over on my map, I've got all of my points. And then you can see my little polygon here, and it's going to show you the trips to the different schools based on what I have, right? Okay, so that's how you would add polygons or lines, which if you are doing this in a math class, it would be really cool for your kids to kind of find the area between places or the distance if you're looking at just polygons in general. So let's say that I have these things over here and I think, man, I probably should have alphabetized these, right? I can just click on this and I can move it up. So now there's the Curtis Colwell Center. I'm going to move Garland High up, then I'm going to leave Harris Hill. Okay, so Lakeview. So I can alphabetize these, which is really cool if you're doing social studies, history map, and you want your kids to put things in timeline. So let's say they are mapping out all of the battles of the American Revolution. Okay, so they've got them all the way up the Eastern Seaboard. I can have my kids, based on the date of those battles, put them in chronological order, and then I can start, you know, at the trip of point 1 and go through the battles interactively. So I'm going to zoom out a little more so we can see more of the United States. Okay, so that's why you would reorganize for a timeline. Oh, here we go, here we go. All right, so now let's see. Here we are in Garland. There's Lakeview. And I think, man, I want to go to New Orleans. Let's see how far it is. I'm going to add a driving route. And it's going to bring up another layer. See how it says untitled layer? And it says click on the map to start tracing your route. So I'm going to click here. Okay. And then I'm going to drive to New Orleans. So you can see as I kind of drag it around here, it's changing which roads I'm going to take. So if I think, oh my gosh, my students are in Austin, or I need to drive all the way to El Paso, which is way far away, or I want to go to San Antonio, or oh, I want to go all the way to ATL. Okay, whatever you do, you're just going to click and then click again. Okay, and I don't want to drive anymore. That's all I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to change this to road trip. And then as I go in, I can set whatever I want to do. And I want to go from Rowlett to Atlanta, like I did earlier. What do you mean you couldn't find a route? There's a route there. I just took one. There we go. Okay, so now you can see there's my route from Rowlett to Atlanta. And if I scroll out, you can see there's my driving map, and I can look at any point on the route that I want to and add whatever. So I've seen some people use this as travel guides. When they're doing road trips, they kind of put points along the outside of where to stop. Maybe they're going to stop at the halfway marker. So if I'm looking at how long it is, I can divide that in half and figure that out. Okay, so let's say my map is completely finished. I'm ready to save it so that I can put it on Google Earth, which is super cool. So I'm going to click on these 3 dots, and I'm going to click on Export to KML KMZ, which KML stands for Keyhole Markup Language. It's specifically for geographic data. I had to look that up. I had no idea what it meant. So I'm going to download this, and it's going to download it as this KMZ file. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Google Earth. And if you've never looked at Google Earth, that is a whole other separate thing that's also super cool. And I'm going to click on projects, and then I'm going to click new project, and I want to import a KML file from my computer because I didn't save that to my Google Drive. I'm just going to import it from my computer. So it's going to bring up my list of downloads. Here is the webinar map. I'm going to click open. And now what it's doing is it's adding all of those points onto the map. So you can see there's my route of travel, okay? And it brings in all of my maps. It brings in my main map, and I can click on my main map and see all of the points. So if I click on Garland High School, it's gonna kind of zoom in on Garland High, and it's getting there. It's going, it's going, it's going, it's going, right? Okay, so here's Garland. And I think, man, I wonder what this looks like, you know, not just from a bird's eye view. If I click 3D, my map is gonna rotate, and now it is literally a 3D map. So I can see all of the stuff around Garland. And here, you know, it's going to give me my driving directions from Garland to South. I can click on the points around the school. And here's my trip to school map that I clicked on. Okay, I can go over to this football field. I can go to the rec center. I can do whatever I want. If I don't want to see the trip to school, I can hide it, so to speak. So remember, my polygon on my map was blue, and the border is this line down here. So if I click on this eye, now the blue overlay is gone, and I've taken that out. Okay, so if I take out, you can't see lunch spots, but if I put that in, you'd be able to see that. I don't want to see the directions, okay, from Garland High to South Garland. So now you can kind of see what you want or what you don't want on your map. So let's say I'm here at Garland, and now I want to go to South. Okay, boom, boom, boom. It's taking me all the way back over to South. There's South Garland. Okay, and make 3D. So for students, whether you're doing kind of a literary marker or, and I just clicked back on the world to get out of that map. Let's say you're reading and you want to go on a literary journey, and the book takes place in Asia. You can plot points on your map for things that are happening in the book, and then have your kids kind of be immersed in that area, because a lot of our kids don't really travel. And if they did travel, they're not traveling to Asia on a regular basis. So maybe they don't know what those places look like. So this is a really good way to get them to kind of see what's happening. So that's how you would get it into Google Earth. So I'm going to close Google Earth. So if I go back to my map, okay, here is all of my points. So let's say I want to add some stuff very quickly without having to click on each thing. I'm going to open my data table. So what that does is it brings up every point on your map and the description. So if I click here in description and I do South Garland High School, and I'm just going to type in the Colonels, okay? And then for Garland High School, I'm going to type in the original. Shout out, Gina. North Garland, you see I added their mascot earlier. So I went in, and as I'm clicking on these places, it's taking me there. So I can see there's their mascot. So if I click back in Rowlett, it's going to take me to see the video. If I click on Lakeview, I didn't save anything, but I added it from the map. So you can kind of see what's happening there. But one of the other things you can do is if I wanted to, I could type in a URL. So this is what I had my kids do, and I'll show you one of their maps so you can see what I'm talking about and what it would look like from the kids' point of view. Okay, so here is the culture map, and what I had them do was look at coming of age rituals across different cultures. And so here, there's one in Israel. Okay, so they were talking about bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. So they would find an image for the coming of age ritual and then briefly describe it in their words. And then I had them cite their sources, which they put in for me. So here in the Amazon rainforest, it's kind of hard to see with this thing here, but you can see there's their coming of age ritual picture there. And so this was neat for the kids to kind of see the difference between when someone comes of age. So in some countries it's 10 or 11, in other countries it's 20 or 21, whatever, and then how they celebrate those things. So here in Ethiopia at bachelor parties, men jump over 4 cows naked. There are lots of fun things that they can do. Girls of 20 dress up to attend a ceremony, but it was interesting for my kids to kind of see this. So you can add the description or change whatever that way. And if I wanted to add those quickly, I could just do it on my data table and type in something. So let's say I want to type in the bit.ly that I know by heart. So bit.ly hashtag sign or backspace sign me up webinars. Okay. So now it's going to put that in there, and then you could go and automatically added it into the description for me. The next thing you can do is use your sheet to format a map. Okay, so I'm going to get out of the data table. I'm going to get out of this. I am going to open a brand new map. So you just click on those 3 dots. You click new map. Okay, so now I have a completely blank, untitled map. And it's just going to show me the United States. So I'm going to click import. So it tells you, you can put in a CSV, an Excel spreadsheet, a KML, or GPX, or you can just insert something from your Google Drive. So I am going to go to recent. It's going to take a while because it has to find all my stuff. Okay, so I did one that includes all of the GISD schools. Okay, it's all 72 schools. So on my spreadsheet, and here's my spreadsheet so you guys can see, it's got the school name, the school address, what grades the school offers, and then the principal's name. So if they're a doctor, that's included, and then it has their first and last name. So if I go back to my map, it says select the columns from your file that tell us where to put the place markers on the map. So I want them to put them at the address, okay? And then what do I want each point to be called? I want that to be the school name. So then if I click finish, it's going to take a second because there are 72 schools. But now all 72 schools have just been plotted on the map. So if your kids are working on a spreadsheet and they're creating maybe an atlas of a specific type of animal, what country the animal is found in, traits of the animal, all that kind of stuff, they can fill in a spreadsheet, and then you, as the teacher, can go in and put all of their work on a map. So now if I click here at Saxe High School, I can see, here's the address for Saxe, here's the grades Saxe has, 9 through 12, and then here's the principal's first and last name, Shea Creel. Okay, any point that I click on is going to have any of the data that was in my spreadsheet on the little descriptor, okay? So let's say I think, man, this is really cool, but I want to separate elementary schools from high schools just by looking at the map, right? Because right now everything's blue and I'm just kind of guessing, but I don't know what I'm clicking on, okay? So if I come up here where it says uniform style, and I open this, okay, I can sort it by sequence of numbers. I can give them all individual styles, or I can style by data column. So I'm going to go down to grades. And now what it's done is it's color coded these for me. Okay, so now all of my K-5 schools, which there's 32 of them, are going to be green. All of my PK through 5 schools are purple. My middle schools that are 6 to 8 are a different shade of purple. My high schools are blue. Any school that does K through 12 is red. Pre-Ks, there's only 2 of them, okay? And then the CTC is the only one that's 11 and 12. So if I click this little caret down here, this down arrow, it's going to show me, here are my elementary schools. And I can kind of see which things fall under which legend. I can even go in and say, you know what? I want my elementary schools to have a teddy bear. Have a teddy bear? No. All right, let's try bear. Okay, there's an animal. So if I say, all right, all my elementary schools should have bears. So now it's super easy. So if you're doing this with, younger kids, or even maybe some ELLs, and they don't necessarily need to differentiate between these points just by looking at them color-wise, or maybe you've got someone who's colorblind, you can change the icon for them. Okay, so then I want my pre-K through 5 kids to have, we'll change it to something super different than the other one. They're going to be fish. Okay, so now when I'm looking, I can see directly on the map where my fish are, where my bears are, what's happening. I could change these to any color, and then I can add whatever I want. Some of the other fun tools on the map, you can undo or redo anything that you've done. Here I can select an item. Okay, that's just going to be my basic hand tool. Here I can add a marker. Here's where I'm drawing the lines or shapes, or I can add routes between places. Here is going to give me driving directions. It's automatically going to create a layer on my map. And then here is my measurement tool. So I can just measure from this school to this school to this school to this school. And it's just going to tell me in miles. And then if I close the polygon, then it's going to give me square footage in the middle there. Okay, so that's going to be all of the tools for the map. I'm going to delete this layer. Yes, I want to delete it. And then I'm going to remove my polygon once I get up here and change my GISD schools. Okay, so there's all of the fun things for MyMaps. Here are the layer options. So if I wanted to rename this layer, or again, I can open the data table, and this is going to look very similar to my sheet. Now, it's not going to open my spreadsheet, so nobody is going to have access to that. But if I wanted to go in and say, oh, Miss Beltran at Hickman Elementary got her doctorate, I can just add that quickly without having to redo anything, which is nice. Or if I want to change the addresses or whatever I want to do. Okay, so that's pretty much all of the functionality of maps. And then I'll show you the sharing options just so you can see. And then here's what the map looks like when you do send it. So see how it says when you share your map, this is how it will look in view only mode. So whoever is looking at this map is not going to be able to edit anything directly, but they are going to be able to click down and see, oh, here's all of the GISD schools. Doing things with the map. Here's all my GISD schools, and here is what the color coding means. Okay, so if I click share, I can share it via Facebook, I can share it on Twitter, I can share it via email, I can embed this on a website. Notice it yells at me and says, hey, you need to change this. So I'm going to change permissions. So right now it is private to where I am the only one that can access it. So if I'm going to share it, I would recommend sharing it with anyone in Garland ISD with the link can find. So that means as long as they have the link, they're going to be able to click and take them there. You can do that publicly. Anyone with the link can find it, or you can just put it public on the web. Okay, so that means no sign-in is required. Everyone can do it. And then here you can change it just like any other Google thing to either can view or can edit. Okay, so I'm going to save that, or I can share it with specific people. So if I want to send it to Gina, and her and I are going to do things across the district, like for Digital Learning Day, and we're trying to figure out our map and the best point of action from school to school. Now she has access to it. We're all good to go. Okay. So it's not going to look like this when other people open it. It's going to look like it did when I showed you what it would look like. Okay. So let's go back to boom, the slides. So just a couple of things. One of the slides in this week's slide presentation is lesson plans and ways that you can use MyMaps in the classroom. So I've got Alice Keeler, Matt Miller, the EdTech team, the Google Teacher podcast, which is actually Casey Bell and Matt Miller together, and then this Fried Tech Amazing Race, which Gina and I saw when we were in TCA. I'm going to click on this just so you can see how cool, like how far you can take this. So here, this is a website they made, and this is what she said she would share with students. Okay, so work in teams to solve the clue. So it's basically a scavenger hunt, and then you can become a guide. So I want to start in the Amazon, and it's going to take me to the itinerary, and it's going to tell me what I need to do. And I need to brave the Amazon and do these things. Okay, so they were really working on Google skills here. But if I go to challenge-based learning maps, okay, here's a video that shows how she created maps. And then here are example folders of all of the material that she has for this. So here's a map that she did on the Outsiders, and this is the scavenger hunt. So like I said, when you share a map, this is what it looks like. Okay, so I would just click on getting started, and here are your instructions to your kids. In order to find your first activity, you will need to go to the city in which the Outsiders take place. Enter your answer in the form below. And so she's hyperlinked her form. It's going to take them directly to the form. And then you type in your answer. Now, I have no idea where the Outsiders took place, but if I did, I would type it in. So let's just say it takes place in Dallas, and I hit submit. Oh, that's wrong. So she did data validation there and said just the city name, make sure you capitalize it. Okay, so once I get the answer correct, then it would give me specific instructions on what my next step in the scavenger hunt would be, which is really neat. So that was a really cool thing for her. And then she's got, if you look down at the bottom, she's got the planning template and then the template form. So this is kind of her thinking behind all of that. And it comes up as a template. So you just click use template, and then you can plan it on your own. Okay. So here she goes step by step, tells you exactly what to do. So there's the map name and where you put all your answers, and it kind of helps you plan everything out, because trying to plan a map from the beginning without any direction can be a little overwhelming. So any of the lesson plan links that you click on, they're all hyperlinked, are going to take you to just ways you can use this in the classroom. But that is it. Gina, are there any questions? Gina?
Yep. No, I couldn't get my mic on. Sorry. No, everybody's quiet today, and I keep saying, guys, this looks like a lot, and it's hard to wrap your head around it. But once you do it one time and you start playing with it, I think you'll really see it's not nearly as hard as it seems. I think kids are going to get a lot out of it. In all different disciplines, even like science, if you're building some kind of atlas or experiment or something, definitely in English and in history, doing interactive maps. And I love that we're getting ready to travel for the summer. So maybe have them researching different places, and putting itineraries together and working on math and reservations or plane tickets or whatever that is. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. And I love that Lashaka put together lesson plan ideas for you with the presentation. But don't be afraid of it. It is a lot easier than it looks.
I will tell you guys, the culture map that I had my classes do last year, these were freshmen, and they had no problem I told them how to do it. I gave them the instructions on Google Classroom, and they just went in. They had to find, so many points, but they did this all on their own. I told them what the instructions were, and they took off. So, here, this is all them. I had nothing to do with this. I told them what colors to make them, all those kinds of things, and they did it. One of the other things that you can do if you don't want to necessarily give your children this kind of freedom, any map that you create, you can have them copy. So if you do a template for them, so, maybe I just put a point here, and they shared this with me, which is why I have editing rights. But obviously, if you send someone a map, this is what it would look like for them. So if I hit copy, okay, so now I've got a copy of the Outsider Scavenger Hunt. Then it's going to bring up an editable version of that. So if you create a template for them, and rather than naming things or doing work for them, let's say I add a marker in Russia, okay, and I can just say title of content, and then here in my directions, I say, please add information about the city and food. Okay, so now when they make a copy of this, this is all they're going to see. So I can say, find any city in Russia and put in pictures of food or whatever. So you can kind of give them some guidance without setting them free. And that might not be as overwhelming for them. But Gina can tell you on Digital Learning Day, she saw elementary school kids working in Google MyMaps. So there is no age limit, or if you think, God, my kids will never get this, I can barely get it. Gina is correct. Once you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, what is all of this? But once you start doing it, and I will tell you, these lesson plan ideas, they do a really good job of walking you through and designing your lesson plan from start to finish. This is actually a podcast. This is more recent. Some of them go back to 2016. This is from March of last year. And they are going to tell you about the changes and then how to do all of these things. So, think of this. They've already put in layers for biomes and animals, measuring distance for math, historical events, obviously for history. You can have the students do some, so they can create maybe a place or a map of places they've lived or places they've been, locations for extracurriculars, places you've done video calls, whatever you want to do. And then, or have them tell a story, have them write a story and do whatever, but they can do all of this. Look, here's a 5th grader from South Carolina did this. Google Lit Trips. There's so many things you can do with Google My Maps, and elementary schoolers are doing this. High schoolers can totally do it. And I know if elementary schoolers can do it, you guys can do it. Okay, so I'm going to, just next week, we are talking about Genially Wednesday at 11, and then Google Sites Thursday at 1. But other than that, we are all done. So if you guys have any questions, now is the time to ask them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about Google Maps. It can be about whatever. Gina and I are here. So I'm going to stop presenting. And if you have questions, let us know. There we go. Let me look in the chat.